Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin, planning ahead. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and check out the sale on the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com. We're going to have that run for about 6 more days. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, I want to talk about a few things here because Bitcoin just came off of a 15% rally, basically, on the last day of February. A great way to close the month. We mentioned before that, typically when you get a red January, and by typically, I mean literally every single time in history we've had a red January, I believe, we had a double-digit gain February. And yesterday at this time, it did not seem like a likely possibility, but Bitcoin came through and gave us a 12% return in February. Okay, so pretty good showing for Bitcoin on the last day of the month. Now, I want to talk about a few things here and planning ahead. And also remembering I don't have a crystal ball. So with that in mind, we need to discuss multiple scenarios here. But I also want to talk about, what would be the hardest to navigate, what would be the easiest to navigate, and also, shed light on my own experience in this market and talk about, what was previously difficult to navigate and hard to see at the time, but that it could still ultimately come through. So as you guys know, I really like the idea of a lengthened cycle. And we've talked about that many times since 2019, so much in fact that many people are tired of hearing about it. But I also want people to understand that it does not make sense to be overly deterministic about anything, okay? I would love for lengthening cycles to prevail, but at the same time, we need to manage our risk accordingly. And what does that mean? I'm going to show you, okay? So the first scenario here is Bitcoin gets rejected off of its bull market support band. This would arguably be the easiest one to navigate because you basically just continue whatever strategy you've been doing for the last 3 months. It's just the same strategy, whatever that is. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever you've been carrying out for the last 3 months, I imagine it would just stay the same if Bitcoin gets rejected and then goes back down. So I don't really want to spend a lot of time on that one because you guys know the drill already. The other two scenarios are what's more interesting. So scenario one is getting above it and then ultimately going and putting in new all-time highs, which I'm going to talk about last. But the third scenario is getting above it and sort of coming up here and then coming back down. Now, the reason I want to talk about this scenario is because I got absolutely wrecked by this scenario in 2014. And I want people to be aware of it if it happens, okay? And the scenario, namely, is something that looks like this, okay? Because back in 2013, 2014, this was my first cycle that I was really following the market. I didn't sell anything up here. I mean, I didn't, and I watched Bitcoin. I watched Bitcoin go down 87%, and I didn't do anything. I just watched my money disappear, basically. I mean, it came back later on, but again, it doesn't help it in the short term, right? I mean, you feel like you completely missed a great opportunity. So what happens if that plays out, okay? And namely, that scenario is what happens if we get above the bull market support band for a few weeks and then we break back down. So we need to talk about that scenario because, again, it is a possibility. We talked about this scenario back over here as well. Unfortunately, we held the line. What did we do? We held the line. And what happens when you hold the line? You normally put in a new all-time high. Now, again, this was a place where I got overly deterministic again, and I thought we were going to, I thought there was a good chance we were going to continue higher. I always said I don't think we're going to go to 100K in 2021, but I didn't think we were about to have another 50% drop. So I think, getting a little bit too overly deterministic. So in this case, if we don't get rejected here, which by the way, I mean, coming off a 15% rally in a day is pretty nice. It's a pretty nice move. And also coming off, sort of a double bottom here, if you want to call it that, at 33K and 34K. If you overlay the fair value regression band, I mean, we literally went down to the fair value both times. You can see here on literally each wick, we went down to that fair value regression line. So if you want to think of it as a double bottom, and then we're coming up with some momentum after having a 3-month period actually this is I clicked on 3-month candles. Let me click on 1-month candles. So after having 3 months of going down again, just like we had earlier in 2021, if March ends up being a green month, which actually most previous Marches have actually been red, kind of like September, in fact. But if March does end up being a green month and we come back up here, the reason we need to consider this scenario that we saw in 2014 was because I got absolutely wrecked over here, and I want people to at least consider it. Okay? Again, I hope lengthening cycles prevails, and this is what I would prefer to see happen. I prefer to see Bitcoin go to 100K. I mean, over here, I would have also have preferred to see Bitcoin go to, to $2,000 or $3,000, and I didn't go there. So let's be cautious about that scenario. What would happen in that scenario if it plays out? Well, if this scenario plays out, then you basically get Bitcoin going up. If it goes sideways for, let's say, I mean, this was about a month and a half, 2 months or so, you could see altcoins rally during that time. The problem is if altcoins rally and Bitcoin is unable to consistently put in new highs, like if it just goes up, puts in a high, puts in a low, and then sort of puts in a lower high and then comes back down, probably doesn't look that great. Okay, so let's consider that scenario, because if it happens, you have to know that we could easily come straight back down to the levels that we're currently at. All right. So again, don't put it off the table. It could happen. I'm not saying it has to, but it could happen. So scenario 2 is getting above it, not holding it as support, and coming back down. If this happens, by the way, then you will see altcoins run just like they did, just like they've run previously when Bitcoin is above its bull market support band. But you need to keep a close eye on Bitcoin. Does it show strength or does it show weakness? If it shows strength and it's putting in higher highs, then that gives us a lot of confidence that the market can then actually go put in a new all-time high. If it goes up and then immediately starts putting in lower highs, then we're not really getting that confidence that we would really like to see. And then it's going to come down to whether we can hold the bull market support band as support or not. And if we don't, then you could easily be looking at another prolonged period below the bull market support band if we're even able to get above it in the first place. The third scenario, which would actually probably be, it might even be the most painful, would be getting above it and then ultimately holding it as support and then putting in a new all-time high. That might actually be the most painful just because of how uncertain things would be, and in retesting the bull market support band, if it were to play out like that, coming back down to it. The reason it would be painful is because if it were to play out like 2014, where you sort of flirt with it for a few weeks off and on, it might seem like we're going to hold it and then we don't, and then it might seem like we're going to hold it and then it feels like we're not going to, and then if we do, that could be a painful scenario because people might take a lot of profits and then regret it if in fact the market ultimately trends higher. So really, you need to plan for all three, right? I mean, as crazy as that sounds, scenario 1 is basically we just get rejected here, and having some cash on hand to take advantage of that would be the most ideal scenario. Scenario 2 would be coming back above the bull market support band, getting above it, and then maybe going sideways for a little while up in this range. In order to get back above the 20-week SMA, we need to go above $49,000. It's almost at 49K. So if we can get back above 49K, imagine if Bitcoin goes back to 50K, the market's going to be euphoric again. Okay, people are gonna freak out. So we need to keep a close eye on this, because if that happens, it's going to be a very testy time in the market if we get back up here. Okay, because then it's like, can we hold it as support? Or is the floor going to fall out, right? Hold it as support and go higher, or is the floor going to fall out? And if this happens, if the floor is going to fall out, then you need to be careful, okay? Because you can easily get wrecked in this market if the floor falls out on the 20-week. Look what happened last time. Look what happened the time before. You instantly saw, when we fell below it, you instantly saw a 37% drop from where we fell below the 20-week. Here, you instantly saw another 36% drop from where we fell below the 20-week. So if we get above it again and we fail to hold it as support again, then you could easily see a significant drop to happen only in a few weeks that could be quite painful. So do consider that scenario. Remember, don't be overly deterministic about anything. Really don't. Try to have an open mind on this market, and always go where the price action is telling you. For instance, when we got rejected here, we said we're either going to go put in a lower low, or we're likely going to go retest the prior low. And we got pretty close to it, right? I mean, we said that when we were at like 39K or so after the rejection. We went down to 34K. Now we've come back up. So now we're going to say something similar. Look, if we get rejected, we're probably going to go put in we're probably going to go retest the prior low or go put in a lower low. If we get above it, then what are you going to see? You're going to see altcoins rally for likely, right? You're going to see altcoins rally. The key thing to watch is not whether altcoins are rallying, because of course it'll be fun making money on altcoins. The key thing to watch will be, what strength does Bitcoin show? Does it show strength and can it hold it? Or does it show weakness like 2014 where it got back above it? Does it show weakness and it puts in a high and then it puts in a lower high and then it just sort of slowly bleeds back down? If something like this happens, then again, you're looking at another prolonged period below the bull market support band, more than likely, okay? Remember, this cycle has been full of bullish markets and bearish markets. A bull market here, a bear market there. And we sort of go back and forth on it, right? I mean, unlike 2017, that was just one long continuous bull market followed by one long continuous bear market, this one has been a short bull market and then a bear market that was sort of split up. And then a short bull market, and then a short bear, or this was more than just a short bull market. It lasted a little bit longer, but not nearly as long as this one over here. And then we had a short bear market, and then another bullish phase, and now we've been in another bearish phase. But if we get back above the bull market support band, then we're looking at another bullish phase again. And if that happens, whatever comes of that, we need to be on high alert, because again, you don't want to be overly deterministic about anything. You're always learning something in this market. I'm always trying to learn something in this market. It's easy to get pulled into the narratives, and I've certainly have my own narratives that I would like to see fulfilled. But again, we held the line over here. We put in a new all-time high, which is great, and then we just gave it all back. So let's see what happens here. I think we're at the point in the cycle. I'm hoping. I really hope so. I really hope we're far enough along in this cycle that the people that are remaining here aren't going to give me a hard time about talking about the downside risk. Okay, I know when we're in the height of a bullish phase like this, when I was telling people that we were likely going to go down in the summer, got tons of bad comments, right? Tons of bad comments and people saying that it was ridiculous to assume that Bitcoin would never drop more than 20 or 30% ever again. Institutions wouldn't let it happen, blah, 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 right? So I don't think we're at that stage anymore. I think the people that are here, you understand the risks involved. You understand that we could easily go back down if we get rejected or if we get above it and we don't hold it as support. But you also understand what's eventually waiting for us whenever we do hold it as support. Whether we get above it and do it now, or whether we get above it, come back down, and then do it later, it just means you kick the can down the road, okay? So let's just consider these scenarios, and I want people to think about them now, because we'll likely see one of them play out, right? Like we'll try to see, okay, which one does it look like is playing out? And if we get above it like this, then we got to keep a close eye on this. Like, can we actually break back above? Let's say, can we break back above the 60K area? Because that 60K area was a pretty important area once upon a time, as you can see, right? And if we can get above that, if we can get above 60K, then there's a really good chance we're putting in a new all-time high, okay? But if we get above here and then we just sort of like roll back over like we did in 2014, you need to be aware of the downside risk. And by the way, the downside risk on altcoins, if something like that happens, is a lot worse than it is for Bitcoin, okay? Because they can rally. A lot of altcoins will rally if something like that happens. But if they do, they can give those gains back in a hurry if Bitcoin fails to hold the bull market support band. You see what happens when it fails to hold, right? Again, we've been in this market long enough at this point. Most of you guys have been in this market long enough to know how quickly altcoins give back their gains when Bitcoin goes below the bull market support band. Okay, you know how quickly it occurs. So if Bitcoin rallies up here and does something like this and is not showing signs of strength and comes back down, you need to be aware that altcoins could just as easily give back a lot of those gains that they might give you in the event that something like that happens, okay? So look, I know everyone wishes we had a crystal ball here to tell you exactly what's going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't. I wish I did. Some things I get right, some things I get wrong. And we'll see. Ultimately, I think it's just better having a plan to navigate the market no matter what happens, rather than assuming any of us can actually predict the market to a T. We can always look at fractals and whatnot and talk about similarities. And in fact, even recently, you could argue There's been some similarities between what happened over here, right? Like this capitulation wick, followed by, a sell-off right here, and then followed by a massive green candle that just takes us right back up. So if this plays out, then maybe we get a day where we catch our breath, and then we could easily continue moving. Let's be careful, okay? Let's be cautious how we navigate this market, and do not be deterministic about anything. But if anything you're going to be deterministic on, it should be that Bitcoin trends up with time, okay? With time. Time is something that, it can take a lot of time to see Bitcoin trend higher, but it does generally trend higher with time, okay? So you guys know what to watch out for. So let's watch for those things in the coming weeks. Let's see what happens with Bitcoin. If it gets rejected just by the bull market support band, then we just go back to the same thing as always, right? Same boring thing that we've been experiencing for the last 3 months. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, give the video a thumbs up. We also have the premium list intothecryptoverse.com. Lock in the lower rate. You'll get access to a lot of useful tools, right? It's not just my commentary, which you get a lot of on the YouTube channel, but it's also on-chain analysis charts, social metrics charts, risk levels, ROI charts, logarithmic regression, derivative charts, etc. You get access to a whole lot of stuff. So make sure you lock in the lower rate. You can keep that rate as long as you do not cancel. Thank you for tuning in. Subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.